Thank you for joining me, Claire. Can you please let people know what you do and how long you've been working in the education sector for, please?
Thanks, James, and thanks for this opportunity for a conversation. So I'm the Education Director at Galliford Try. We're a main contractor, very active in the education sector. So we've currently got 50 projects, live projects in pre-construction and construction across England and Scotland. So that gives you some idea of the scale of the work. My role is I have an overview of all of the education sector, looking at sort of sharing best practice and innovation across all of the projects in the company, and I have a particular responsibility for the Department for Education framework. I've been working in the education sector exclusively since 2007, moved across from social housing sector, where I worked as a surveyor and project manager. And then I joined the contracting side initially as a pre-construction manager.
So we'll jump in with the first question, which has been left by Julian Robinson from LSE. Julian asks, do contractors undertake their own formal post-occupancy evaluation with, say, clients, architects and consultants? It's normally something that I do as a client by commissioning an outside party to do. It'd be really good if contractors did that. No contractor has ever come to me and said, we would like to do a post-occupancy evaluation.
That's a great question. Thanks, Julian. And I think it's a real shame that he's never been asked to take part in any post-occupancy evaluation at the LSE, particularly as he's commissioned some amazing iconic buildings. And that's a real opportunity missed for everyone involved in those projects. But yes, we do undertake post-occupancy evaluation, and I'm currently involved in a project which is ongoing where we're looking at our special needs schools. We've got quite an extensive portfolio of special schools that we've been working on over the last 2 to 3 years. We've currently got 18 projects that we're involved in. And I actually spoke around some of the initial feedback last year at Education Estates Conference. So as part of that post-occupancy evaluation, we undertake a structured conversation with the school. We have a tour of the building. We do an online survey of all the staff. And then we produce a report on the particular school, but we also look at themes. So highlight areas for improvement for us as the contractor, but for our designers, and also to kind of take back to the client and look at areas for improvement, and just make sure that that voice of the end user is very much part of the kind of circle of lessons learned that we need to take into account.
Thank you. And yeah, it's really important to learn the lessons and help shape future projects going forward. So there we go. Other contractors listening to this, if you are working with LSE or got projects coming up, to do lots of bits with your clients. So we'll jump a little bit onto actually your role within Galliford Try and the kind of projects you've recently been involved in. If you were to sort of pick out sort of 1 or 2 projects that you're most proud of, what would they be and why?
I think it's quite difficult, isn't it? It's like being asked which is your favourite child, you know. I think I'm probably most proud of the projects that have had the biggest kind of impact, and that isn't necessarily about size. So thinking about, again, the special schools and alternative provision schools and facilities that we've been involved in, that can have the most impact for the students and the staff, but also for the families. And I was on a recent visit at a completed special school where was told that there was a young woman who was now back in school who hadn't actually been in school for years, and just the effect of the facilities that were now available and kind of being able to kind of get her back into a kind of learning environment. I think that's really something that I won't forget. You know, that's a very proud moment for us and for the project team on that project. But there's also a project that not so recent, probably my first project at Galliford Try, which was actually 10 years ago now, was a project called Harris Invictus Academy. And I started working on it on my first day at Galliford Try, so it's quite memorable from that point of view. Very challenging project, very tight site in Croydon, where the planning authority wanted a landmark building with civic presence, which was quite a challenge with the funding available, but also it's a bit of a challenge to the operation of the school because it was on a high street. But the whole team kind of worked really well, really collaboratively to make that a successful project. And we actually won a Project of the Year at Education Estates in 2018. So that's one that I'm really proud of as well.
Thank you, and congratulations winning that award. So we're going to move on to sort of the sector now, and sort of over the next year or so, sort of what do you think are the biggest challenges the education sector faces, and why, in your opinion?
Well, I think we've got a range of challenges, haven't we, when we look at the condition of the existing estate. But if I sort of focused on maybe the design and build of the new facilities that we're working on, I think there's two areas of challenge that we're currently probably not really addressing. And one is again around special needs, but in terms of requirements within the mainstream school settings, and also the crisis with the mental health and well-being of young people. So we're seeing an increase in children and young people with education, health and care plans, but there's also a whole range of children in mainstream schools who have special needs, whose needs are not being met, or where they are being met, they're being met quite differently in different parts of the country, which is probably a slightly different conversation. But looking at the mainstream settings, there's also a huge concern around sort of mental health crisis within young people. And whilst that needs to be addressed by the health service, I think there's also quite a lot that could be done in schools if resources were available. So the implications for the buildings and the design is, how do we sort of design and build more inclusive environments? What does that look like? What does that mean for the facilities? And how do we include space and areas to improve mental health, so that the support, when the support and the resources are available, that can be provided within the kind of spaces and the designs that we've managed to achieve.
And on the flip side, sort of what do you think are the biggest opportunities that the sector has, and why?
I think that links back to Julian's question actually around, sharing knowledge, because we've got a huge community of really experienced and sort of innovative and very committed professionals working within the education sector. And so we've got this opportunity to learn from each other and share experiences. And I think over the last sort of 3 to 4 years in particular, it's been a really challenging time since 2020, but looking at one area in particular around sustainability and low carbon design, reducing the energy consumption of our buildings, we've been on this really steep learning curve. But because we've worked together and actually shared knowledge and information, we've actually made some massive steps towards those net zero commitments. So I think that is the opportunity for us as a sector, is that sharing of knowledge.
I totally agree, and it's you can see that at our conferences and others, and that kind of coming together with the sector with a shared desired goal of kind of delivering the best learning environments we can for pupils and students from across the UK. So if I may, I'm going to ask you a question about education estates now. Galliford Try have been our longest term sponsor, along with Arcadis, right back in the beginning when we first came up with the concept of the event. Your predecessor Michael, and then sort of most recently yourself, you've been great supporters of us and helped shape the programme, judge the awards, and really sort of throw the full might of the GT team behind the event. So thank you. In terms of attendees and people watching this that may not necessarily have been to Education Estates, what would you say that they would get out of attending Education Estates?
So we've loved supporting Education Estates and being part of that kind of journey of seeing the event, we think, now really grow into the most important kind of education focused event in England and Scotland during the year. It's our sort of key highlight of the year. And I think there's so many opportunities at a range of levels to sort of come together, reconnect with people you already know, meet people that you've not met before, have kind of just informal conversations, or attend a presentation, attend a workshop. There's so much to take part in over the 2 days, and so much going on that you don't have the opportunity to take part in everything that you actually want to. So it's quite difficult sometimes to choose which sessions you're going to go to. But I also really enjoy the awards dinner and evening, not just to celebrate anything that Galliford Try has been involved in, but actually just to see the whole range of amazing projects that have taken place and are being sort of celebrated that evening. I think it's a real highlight for the sector.
Thank you. And those people that want to find out a bit more about Galliford Try, either visit the website or come to Education Estates and see Claire and her team on the stand. They always put a fabulous stand on and have a very welcoming reception for you there. So can you share something about yourself that the audience may not already know, Claire?
So I've been a very keen kind of practitioner of yoga for many years. And one of the things that I did in one of the lockdowns, and I think it was 2021, and I probably wouldn't have done this if for the fact that we actually had to stay at home, and therefore I kind of, wasn't busy running up and down the country, was that I did my foundation course to become the first step to becoming a yoga teacher. So you never know, in a future life, I might be taking that journey further.
My next conversation with Joe Marchant, estates professional at the Boxing Academy. What question would you like me to ask Joe during our conversation?
So firstly, congratulations to Joe on our MBE. Amazing and very well deserved. And I think, I also hope that the awarding of the MBE raises the profile of all school business professionals. And as someone who was previously a school governor and hopefully will be a school governor again in the future, I'd like to ask Jo, what does she think would be the most help to school business professionals in their very challenging role? And if that is too difficult a question, then maybe top 3 kind of tips for school professionals.
Thank you. I'll put that question to Joe. And Claire, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you that you and your team do. And we look forward to seeing you in Manchester in October. And as I say, do pop by and see Claire and her team on their stand. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.